Okay. So I'm going to begin and okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Elle. How you guys doing? Yes, awesome. Okay, so I'll just start to get this rolling. Okay, so we're going to talk about the nervous system and how we can regulate our nervous system based on some childhood survival responses that we've adapted ourselves to. So before we start, let me see. There we go. So before we start, I want to do an introduction post kind of thing. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. Yes, far away. I'm a registered counsellor and a provisional psychologist. So that means I'm a psychologist in training. I get this common question a lot. I'm not as young as I look, because some people think that I'm in my early 20s. Some people think that I'm in my mid 20s. So I have 5 years experience in total, including my training as well. I have my bachelor's and my honors in psychology and counseling. Some of my hobbies include yoga, meditating with sound bowls, painting, and spending time with my 2 cats. Here's some of my interests and passions: the mind and body connection, attachment science, childhood trauma, and relationship concerns. Although at first glance, it may seem like it's a distinct concept, they're all very much interconnected, and towards the end of this workshop, you're going to notice how. So let's talk about what you will get out of this workshop. Well, my job here is to enhance your understanding of yourself and other people, to take ownership of what's happening to your body, to learn new skills to regulate your emotions and your responses to stress, to break out of this habitual protection pattern, the survival mode that we grew accustomed to, and move towards connection mode and safety, to learn how to respond appropriately to life's challenges, and to return to a regulated state and uncover our ability for resilience. So hopefully you'll all get this out of this workshop today. So this is what you'll need: an open, curious mind. We're going to take an interactive approach, so a pen and paper if possible. Refreshers, snacks, and drinks. So I have my water here and I have my tea ready as well. So get as comfortable as possible. And let's begin. So in order to understand the role of our nervous system, we need to first understand the mind-body connection, why it's so important. So let's start with what it is. The mind and body connection is this link between a person's thoughts, their emotions, their behaviors, and their physical health. So here's some examples. When you feel nervous, what happens? Our hands start to shake, right? Or we have difficulty breathing. When we feel worry, we can't sleep. When we imagine a savory dish, we salivate. So this is all examples of how our mind and body connects with each other. And therefore, in order to treat trauma as a separate entity and focus on only one aspect at a time, will only do us injustice, because trauma is not only a cognitive process, it's also stored in the body. So we need to address our well-being as a whole system in order to begin healing. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. All right, so the role of our autonomic nervous system. So as you've probably read in the introduction as well, our nervous system is shaped by all sorts of experiences: our beliefs, our environments, our attitudes, our emotions. Everything that we've ever encountered has an impact on our nervous system. So our ability to respond and recover from challenges, from daily challenges, is the undermarkings of our well-being, which means that it solely depends on the actions of our autonomic nervous system. And so we have this internal surveillance system, which I guess corresponds from moment to moment to what are competing needs of survival and to be social. So in other words, our nervous system helps us navigate to safety by detecting through our senses what is safe, what is dangerous, and what is life-threatening. And our nervous system is what determines how and when we initiate an open connection with other people. So really, just to summarize, our nervous system is shaped by our relationship with other people. So before we understand that, let's get to the logistics of what that safety and danger looks like. So when our nervous system perceives safety, we can collaborate, we can actively listen, we can trust, we can connect with other people. But when our nervous system perceives danger, we feel this disconnection towards other people. We feel tension, we feel anxiety, we feel irritability, right? We feel defensiveness. So I want to ask you guys a question here. What are some common things that you're picking up on while reading this? What's something that stands out to all of you? Okay, take your time. Okay, so yeah. So the common theme that we're picking up here is it's all grounded in human connection. So if once we establish this connection with other people, we can actively listen, we can trust them, we can connect with them. So the common theme here is that safety doesn't come from lack of threat. It actually comes from safe connections. So when we feel safe, it is because we can connect with other people. And so let's look at the 3 types of safety that we seek for connection. So there's physical safety, there's relational safety, and there's emotional safety. And the physical safety characterizes itself as not fearing each other, no threat or control or physical abuse, believing our possessions will not be harmed. Our relational safety includes trust and security and habitual patterns of efforts, equal contribution, discussions of future goals. Emotional safety includes acceptance, love, sharing our feelings and opinions with no judgment, encouragement, support. And the thing here is that if some of these things are lacking, our nervous system doesn't go into dysregulation that fast. Because our nervous system is wise enough to know that sometimes these things cannot be attained at that very moment. However, if we experience this unsafety in these factors for a long period of time, that's when we get to experience that dysregulation, which we're going to talk more about in the following slides. So do you guys have any questions yet? Okay, yes, that's exactly right. Our nervous system has a function that will alert us. Sorry, guys, I'm like taking some time to have a look at the chat while going through it as well, but I'm reading through it, yes. Let's have a look at our next slide. Yes, so what role does the nervous system play when it comes to our childhood? Well, it starts from before birth. Prenatal exposure to socioeconomic hardship, not getting that social support that we need, maternal mood. So if throughout pregnancy we feel heightened levels of anxiety and depression, these all impact the baby's level of heart rate and social interaction once they're born as well. So our autonomic nervous system learns through experience. And so during childhood, the nervous system is shaped by repetitive experiences throughout the child and the mother or the caregiver. And this bonding is called attunement. So we share this bond and connection at an autonomic level from before birth and after birth as well. And when we're in misattunement, that's when we experience this long periods of disconnection from our caregivers. And when we experience that disconnection, that leads us to enter into that fight or fight state, the survival mode. Let's have a look now, which we're going to go through the attunement and misattunement in a second. But first, let's address how this safety is established in our early developmental years. And so babies and children are not able to self-regulate themselves. They don't have this autonomic state where they can go to safety or have those tools and awareness. So they solely rely on their mother's presence or the caregiver's presence, calming, soothing presence, in order to develop safety. And this is called co-regulation. So through co-regulation, we connect with other people and we create a shared sense of safety. And this is essential to our survival because we're solely reliant on our caregivers, right? So let's have a look at how this all works out. Let's have a look at how our regulated nervous system is developed and how a dysregulated nervous system is developed. So in attunement, in that bonding phase, here are some characteristics of a regulated nervous system. This is what it should look like. A relationship that you have with a caregiver who is responsive to your needs. They're attentive to your physical needs. There's acknowledgement of communication and efforts from the child. There's predictability, there's consistency. And in return, this leads to an internal sense of security and safety. So we go out into the world trusting. We'll go back to that slide. We go back into the world, we're able to actively listen, we're able to trust people, we're able to connect with other people and collaborate with other people, right? So we experience that safe connection through our caregivers. Therefore, we experience that safe connection with other people as well. So everything stems from that instant interaction with our caregivers. And so we go into this state of connection. Whereas in misattunement, it is a complete opposite. We have an inconsistent relationship with our caregivers. They're either emotionally or physically absent. They're inattentive to communications and efforts of the child. They're unpredictable, they're unreliable. And so what happens is that leads us to, well, it leads to impact our sense of security and safety within ourselves. So when we don't feel secure, when we don't feel safe within ourselves, guess what happens? We go into a state of protection. We go into survival mode. And what happens in survival mode, as we saw, is we experience a heightened level of anxiety, of tension, of disconnection, and defensiveness as well. So we don't quite feel safe within ourselves, and that impacts our relationship with other people as well. All right, so here, I want you guys to try it in an exercise. So you made it far, you made it to this point, and based on everything that we spoke about, I want you to write down 3 significant childhood experiences that you can recall. So whatever pops up in your mind, whatever stands out to you, whatever had a major impact on how you show up now as an adult. Do you guys have any questions in regards to that? Please let me know in the chat box and I'll respond to you. So I want you to write down what age you were at that time, what the situation was, and how you felt. So I'm going to go back to the attunement and misattunement slide. And I want you guys to use this as a way to navigate through this exercise. Were your caregivers responsive to your needs? Was there predictability? Were they unpredictable? Were they physically or emotionally absent? I want you to note these down in this exercise. I'll give you guys a few minutes. So you can write this down on a piece of paper, you can write down on your phone. This information is just for you, so you don't have to share any of this stuff that you're I guess, writing down. It's just we're going to need this information for the following slides that we're going to go through together. So if you have any questions at all in regards to it, let me know. And when you've completed this exercise, could you please type in the chat that you've done? So we're writing down 3 significant childhood experiences. What age you were at that time, what the situation was, and how you felt. So when you've completed the task, just notify me that you have, and we'll go on to the next slide. Done? Awesome. Okay. Let's continue. Okay. There we go. So in order for us to do the next exercise, we need to first understand the states of our nervous system. So what we're aiming for is this safe ventral state. That's where we feel calm, we feel happiness, we experience curiosity, we're in the present moment. And what happens if this isn't achieved is that we can easily go into sympathetic mode. So this is our flight or fight state. And so if our caregivers, going back to this, if our caregivers were inconsistent with us, so 1 minute they were there, the next they weren't, 1 minute they were comforting and warming towards us and our needs and attentive to our needs, and the next they were critical or absent, you can easily go into a sympathetic state. If you experience this for a long period of time, say throughout your whole childhood, this is what you will experience. So in this, we experience anxiety, we experience anger, defensiveness, hypervigilance, hyperarousal. And if this isn't resolved, we go into our next phase, which is a parasympathetic mode, which is a freeze mode. Here we experience numbness, disconnection, hopelessness, dissociation, withdrawn, and depressed. And so going back to this misattunement, if our caregivers were emotionally and physically absent throughout our whole entire childhood, this is the state that we would go into, the parasympathetic freeze mode, which is our survival mode. Okay, so this is our next exercise. So using these 3 states, I want you to navigate through this exercise. I want you to write down how you responded to these 3 significant childhood experiences that you can recall. So were you in a ventral state? Were you in a sympathetic state? Were you in the flight or fight mode? Did you completely freeze up? Did you feel numb or disconnected? I want you to use this 3 states as a way to navigate through it. Okay, so you may have experiences where you've experienced all of these in what you highlighted. You may be stuck in sympathetic mode. You may be stuck in parasympathetic mode. So note what you can pick up on based off these descriptions. So were you numb? Were you disconnected? Were you angry? Were you extremely anxious? Were you calm and happy and present? Write down what you can pick up on. Because ultimately, what happens in our childhood stays in our nervous system. If we're experiencing this for a prolonged period of time, we literally get stuck in survival mode. And so for future relationships and interactions, our nervous system that has adapted to these states show up in our adult relationships also. So it's a never-ending cycle until we know how to regulate our nervous system, until we know how we have the tools to come to this ventral state. Okay, once you completed the task, just let me know. So we're writing down how we responded to these experiences. So you wrote down the age, you wrote down the situation that you went through, you wrote down how you felt, but how did you respond as a result of it? What state was your nervous system in at that time? Should we move on to the next slide? Okay. Awesome. All right. So this will be pre-recorded anyway. So if you want to go back to it and have a look through some of these slides, you're more than welcome to do so. So even if you can't get much done today, you can always have a look through it. All right. So let's talk about our childhood survival responses. Here are some of our patterns of protection that has been developed since our childhood onwards. So although many researchers don't really talk much about this, this is so important to talk about the fawn response. This is when we comply and we follow the rules in order to attain that safety within our caregivers. So if we notice that our needs are not being met and we're struggling to get back to that safety, we're struggling to get that co-regulation from our caregivers, we can easily go into a fawn response. So this is where we merge with others in order to survive. We respond to threat by trying to be pleasing or helpful to others in order to survive. So this is where our people-pleasing behaviors often stem from. And it's usually characterized by temporarily leaving the body. So you're not being present, you're not present in your body. You're accustomed to meeting everyone else's needs or prioritizing them in order to survive. But in the long run, we notice that it no longer resonates with us. It doesn't serve us in the long run. So how do we get back to our baseline of safety? How do we self-regulate? Here are some suggestions that I have included. Okay, I need to move this to here. There we go. So body scan meditation. This is when you do a meditation practice where you're focusing on each of your sensations. Learning to stay with bodily sensations. So sitting with that tension that you're feeling and releasing it. Clenching, if you're clenching your hands subconsciously and you don't notice it, you can begin to release that, and increased heart rate as well. Physical movement. So this is physical movement. That could be exercise, it could be going for a walk, it could be going to the gym, it could be taking up a class, anything that requires us to physically move. Prioritizing our own needs. So this is very crucial. We're trying to retain that energy that we're putting out back to ourselves, identifying our feelings and values, healthy boundaries, and diaphragmatic breathing. So diaphragmatic breathing is this breathing where we extend our belly out like a balloon. Every time we're breathing in, suck it in. Every time we're breathing out, we're extending our belly out. We're trying not to move the chest as much. And we're breathing through our mouth as well. You can look that up if you like. Now, let's have a look at the next one, which is the sympathetic nervous system. Here's our next pattern of protection. So this is characterized by excessive energy. We either withdraw ourselves or we get angry. So we either flee or fight, right? So our sympathetic nervous system gets activated when the amygdala perceives a threat by releasing chemicals that will mobilize this response. The physical manifestations that we may feel includes shakiness, includes anxiety, aggression, irritability, increased heart rate, sweating, and tension. So how do we return to our baseline of safety? How do we achieve that? We can try by releasing that anger. So you can close your eyes, lay down, let yourself relax and try to calm down. You can give yourself a 10-second hug by wrapping your arms around you and holding yourself tightly. So this includes our physical touch towards ourselves as well. You can stretch your arms out to release that energy. Another option is mild to moderate physical movement. So we're not looking for something that's fast paced because we already have a lot of excess energy. We're looking for something that's going to ground us. It's going to bring us back to our baseline. So that includes Pilates, it could be yoga, it can include Tai Chi, anything that's mild to moderate physical movements. The next thing that we have here is meditation. So we know a lot of the benefits of meditation, but some include regulating our emotions and our thoughts. And in return, this regulates our nervous system as well. Another option here is play. So anything to do with sports, art, creating art, sense of humor. See, laughter is a great way to self-regulate yourself. Breathing, so you can try a different breathing technique, which is you hold your breath for 3 seconds and you exhale out of your mouth. Let's see, we've got a question. Is it possible to be endurance? Yes, it is. So we don't just go into one state or another. We can go into 2 states. We can be in both. We can even be in 3 of those states at once as well. So yes, it's very much possible. I think it depends on the situation that we're going through. It depends on that inconsistent connection that we had with the caregiver. So if they were inconsistent, so 1 minute they are connected to us, next minute they're not connected to us for a long period of time, we can easily go in and out of sympathetic and parasympathetic. So let's have a look at parasympathetic, our last pattern of protection. So this is where we avoid and we isolate. It's also known as the freeze response. So when our flight or fight is not enough to invade that threat or that stressor, and we can't seem to come back to that regulated state, we go into that freeze mode. Some of the physical manifestations of that includes feeling scared, feeling numb, zoning out, exhaustion, slow heart rate, slow metabolism. We could sleep for days. We feel extreme lack of energy to do anything. And so how do we respond? And how do we get ourselves from being in that state and returning to our baseline of safety? Here's some things that we can do. So we're trying to bring our energy, our nervous system back to the present moment. And we can do this through activating our 5 senses. So that includes running a warm bath. It includes massage. It includes scented candles, other kinds of scents, music. You can try some of these grounding exercises also. So you can notice, you can put your feet down and notice how it feels on the floor. You can hold an object in your hand and really focus on that object. There's also another one where you list 5 things that you can see, I think 4 things that you can hear, and so on and so forth. And physical activity. So any forms of physical exercise really helps to regulate the nervous system. So I know there's, it's a bit difficult to to get back to that regulated state because we have that lack of energy. So even if you go for a quick walk, if you move your body, if you move your arms, your hands, your feet, that could be considered as that physical activity as well. And lastly, physical intimate acts. So we can achieve self-regulation, or we can achieve that baseline of safety through co-regulation. So that co-regulation can include sex, it can include self-play, holding hands, hugging, being in the presence of someone whose nervous system is regulated also. Okay, so in relation to that exercise that we did, does all this stuff make sense to you? So now that you've identified what these situations are, how you can respond to them or how you responded to them, you're now equipped with some tools that you could use to get yourself out of that. You'll notice that from those experiences that you've had in childhood, you can maybe pick up how it's showing up in your current life right now. And so, so here's some things that it's crucial to understand about this. Our survival responses were not designed to make us suffer or fail. You know, it's not there to make it harder for us. It's just our body's way of trying to protect itself. So your body's really doing what it's meant to do, and that's to keep you safe in the best way that it knows how. So maybe it doesn't serve you anymore in the way that you protect yourself, but once upon a time, it played an important role in your life. So as children, our main goal is to be loved, is to feel safe and connected to our caregiver. So we will mold ourselves or embody any role to attain that. So going back to what we said here about the fawn response. So the reason why we go into merging with others in order to survive is so we can feel that safety, so we can feel loved and accepted by other people. And a few things to note as well. So even if you don't have a regulated nervous system, you can regulate your nervous system through the presence, a calming, soothing presence of another person. And the same thing applies with a dysregulated nervous system as well. So if you're in the presence of someone who has a dysregulated nervous system, the truth is they probably don't have that awareness or those tools to regulate their nervous system, which can potentially lead you to dysregulate as well. So if your caregivers, you know, has a history of having parents who are inattentive to their needs, to their efforts and whatnot, they are in a state of having a dysregulated nervous system, which in return, it makes sense why our nervous system gets dysregulated also. So basically, to summarize, we send physiological messages of safety or protection all the time without noticing it. So since the day that we're born, even before we're born, we're in constant communication with what makes us feel safe and what makes us require protection. So, so we went through that pretty fast. So here's how you can get in touch with me if you need to. You can go on to my Instagram page, e.gurxcounseling, for free mental health content. You can email me directly if you guys have any questions. And so thank you all for joining me today. I don't know if that was a bit fast paced, but do you have any questions at all before we wrap up? Thank you. I'm glad you're here. And so I provided a bit of information here as well. If you enjoy this type of content and you want to learn more about it, you can contact me for a one-on-one consultation. If you want to see a therapist who specializes in this, you can look up a psychosomatic therapist in your local area. If you want to do more research on your own, you can look up polyvagal theory, because everything that we've spoken today was grounded in polyvagal theory. And a recommended read, if you want to read something on it, you want to read a book about it, I put down a Polyvagal exercises for safety and connection by Deb Dana. It's been really helpful, and I use some of her work as a way to navigate through this as well. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you all learned something from this.